Bienvenidos a Tres Respuestas, un espacio de conversación, de discusión y de propuestas. Nuestro invitado de hoy es uno de los líderes empresariales más importantes del sector de alimentos en el mundo. Se trata de Jason Buechel, el CEO de Whole Foods, una de las cadenas más importantes de los Estados Unidos, no solamente en la distribución y venta de alimentos, sino también en la generación de cadenas de valor agregado. Jason es un experto en tecnología, un experto en gestión, es un líder joven, una persona que disfruta muchísimo de la naturaleza y que mantiene permanentemente los valores de una compañía que sigue conquistando mercados y que sigue ganándose el afecto de los consumidores. Jason, it's such a pleasure to have you with us in Tres Respuestas podcast.
President Duque, I'm so happy to be here today. Thank you so much for having me.
Okay, let me begin by asking some personal questions. Tell us about who's Jason Buechel. Where were you born, and how did you pursue this marvelous career in order to reach higher responsibilities in terms of management, but also something that describes you pretty well, which is leadership, technology, value chains, and motivating teams. So why don't you tell us a little bit of that life story, Jason?
Yeah, happy to. So I grew up in Wisconsin in a rural part. My father was a cheesemaker. Both of my parents grew up on dairy farms and had an opportunity to spend a lot of time on my grandparents' farms. In particular, on my mother's side, had a lot of opportunities to not only spend time there, but had a chance to do some of the work, whether it was picking stones, baling hay, helping with the butchering process. And so my connection to food, farmers, and our food systems goes really deep since I was very young. Also did gardening since I was 7 years old. And was part of something here in the United States we call 4-H, where you have different projects and stuff that you work on. And gardening was my very first project and something I did for 10 years. So I was the kid who was growing vegetables in the garden and taking them to the fair. So very interesting to, many years later to be in a position where, I see one of my big responsibilities is advocating for our food systems and farmers and obviously, caring for how these products will show up for future generations. After living in Wisconsin, growing up, going to high school there, also went to college in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and from there I went into consulting, where I did a lot of work with retailers, both in the U.S. and a few internationally, specifically working on helping improve business processes and implementing technology, which is what my degree was in. And through that work, I had an opportunity to connect with some of the amazing leaders at Whole Foods Market, then co-CEO Walter Robb and CFO Glenda Flanagan. And it was through those relationships that actually had me connect to Whole Foods. I'd been a customer for over 12 years at that point, and it was really like the higher purpose and the core values and what I saw amongst both the leaders and the team members that really drew me to Whole Foods Market. So it's sort of a full circle, if you will, having those deep connections to food at a young age and ultimately being in an amazing role and position where not only we're providing the highest quality natural and organic products to customers, but being in this role to help advocate for our farmers and ultimately the protection of our food systems.
Well, that's a very impressive and inspiring story, Jason. And if I were to connect that personal life close to the food production chains, and then that consulting path of analyzing data, looking at process, making recommendations on how to make things much better, and then entering into a company like Whole Foods, where you have also kind of climbed up the ladder from different positions and now being a CEO, I definitely have to ask about that life story connected to something that I consider one of the maybe the most beautiful cases of corporate inspiration regarding food security and food supply. And it's the concept of John Mackey, who was CEO and founder of of Whole Foods, who wrote an amazing book with Rajshi Soda called Conscious Capitalism, about doing good and doing well. That's the question that I want to ask you today, and also based on your life experience. How does your leadership motivation connects you with that mantra, doing good, doing well, keeping food security systems working, but also through aggregated value chains, being able to get the just payment for those producers, and at the same time, get the people who are consumers to consume responsibly?
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's really why I'm here. I mentioned a little bit earlier the higher purpose and the core values. For us, our higher purpose is nourishing people on the planet. And our core values help us lead that way. And, that's one of the reasons not only why I came to Whole Foods Market, but it's why I get excited to get out of bed every single day. I know that we're not just a grocer, we're a force for change in the world and making it a better place. And our responsibility is looking across the entire food system and saying, like, how can we help make this better? Better for the workers that are helping produce our foods, better for the communities where we're producing the food, and better for the environment. And that actually happens to be sort of the ways that we help bring some of our programs to life, and things like Source for Good, which is an exclusive program to Whole Foods Market, where those products are better for workers, better for communities, and better for the environment. And you mentioned some of the work that, John has done in helping lead conscious capitalism and conscious leadership. Not only was that one of the things that drove me to Whole Foods Market, but what I see as one of the biggest responsibilities I have as a leader of the company. Folks often ask me, like, what do I want my legacy, to be? And for me, it's, making sure I can pass the baton to the next leader of the company in a place where we've maintained our higher purpose, our quality standards, our core values, the culture of the company, so it's available for future generations. And for me, it's not just the work that we're doing as Whole Foods Market, but it's actually our job to lead and inspire. If you take what John did with conscious capitalism, those were, values and ways of working for Whole Foods for decades. And why, he worked with Raj in helping, bring the concept in the book to life was to encourage others to do so as well. And, every single day as we do work as Whole Foods Market, we're helping elevate standards and others are following. And so I oftentimes share the story of, as suppliers work with Whole Foods Market, we can actually help make a greater impact. Our standards become their standards, and those products end up on shelves of our competitors and others within the food and grocery industry. We're also in a space where, our competitors see what we're doing and they follow us. And so whether it was the work we started 44 years ago in opening and helping lead when opening our first store and leading the organic movement here in the United States, to work we're doing right now with regenerative agriculture, or take our pollinator policy, which we introduced last year to help protect pollinators in support of produce that's being grown not only here in the U.S. but around the world. Others are following those steps. And so it's this ripple impact that we can ultimately have in making a better food system and ensuring not only that the highest quality natural and organic products are available, but they're available for everyone. Which is, one of the, things that I really look at as one of our first mission was helping bring these products, out there and making them available. And the fact that you can go to, basically any retailer at this point, not only here in the U.S. but around the world, and gas stations and different parts of the world, and whether it's organic or natural products, you're going to find them all over the place at this point. And I think a lot of that work had to do with what we took in leading this industry starting 44 years ago.
Let me also connect that answer with maybe ask you about practical examples of how, for example, today Whole Foods is helping producers, not only in the States, but also maybe from abroad, in having those value chains. And I see it in multiple ways. And I've seen it with bananas that come from some of the farms in regions of Colombia or Central America. But I've also seen it, for example, with the value chain of avocado. And I've seen it also with pomegranates, just to mention. And I know that you specifically are very much concentrated in trying to let those aggregated value chains have a great distribution of resources so that every part of the chain receives the value that represents all the effort of producing organic. Can you name some of those examples, Jason?
Yeah, would love to take Costa Rica as an example. You know, we source a lot of bananas and pineapples from there. Our partner Earth University is one of our top banana suppliers, and so in addition to making sure that practices are helping support sustainability and protecting the environment and growing that product, work that we're doing to help support both workers and the community, but ultimately the school itself. And so every time you're buying an Earth Banana, which is part of our Source for Good program at Whole Foods Market, it's actually helping fund work at that university, which is one of the top universities in the world, where students from countries across the entire planet are helping studying and trying to find ways to protect the future of our food systems, to pineapples that we're growing with Dole in Costa Rica, where we have a premium that is helping going and supporting opportunities for workers, you know, whether it's in forms of medical care, dental, to work that's happening around education and upskilling and helping protect and support the community. We're helping elevate standards. And visits I was able to do there, not only could I hear wonderful stories, you know, team members of theirs who, you know, for their entire life couldn't get dental care. And, you know, talking to a team member who, you know, never could smile. He was always, you know, shy and afraid because he was ashamed of, you know, what his teeth looked like, and being able to get, you know, needed medical benefits that we take for granted here in the United States. He's a completely different person now. And so it's those little benefits. And then talking with the leadership of saying, you know what, you're changing standards everywhere, because people realize, you know, they can go work on these farms and have these standards. They're having to elevate their benefits as well. And so that's some of the ripple effect that ends up happening, because as you raise these standards, others will come along the way.
And if I were to connect those stories that change lives, that allow Whole Foods to have a very successful market, let me also put another equation to this conversation. Whole Foods, and I know this is part of your interest, is also connected in changing habits, making people have a healthier life, and concentrate also on the wellness of the consumers. That obviously has a very impressive statement of resetting many of the preconceptions in the food sector, where many products that were, you know, if they're used unhealthy for a long time, very profitable, and you make the bet of being organic, trying to change the habits and trying to make organic products cooler in terms of the way the market perceives, was something that was seen maybe crazy some years ago, but you have been able to change those habits. And now when you enter a Whole Foods store, you live the experience of wellness, and you see it in small phrases, in the way the products are telling their story, and you get also a great connection in the exchange of information between the customer and the people who are there attending that experience. Why don't you tell us about that culture that I think is one of the greatest assets that you have been able to build in Whole Foods, and that you're also wanting to scale up?
Yeah, well, one of our goals is to provide the highest quality natural and organic products available. And one of our top differentiations is our quality standards, which is, you know, what you were referring to a little bit there. And, you know, for us, it's, you know, our ability to make sure that customers don't have to be looking at every single item and turning around and looking, you know, at the ingredient labels and, you know, spending all of this time. We want to be able to do the homework for our customers on their behalf. And for those who want to go deeper and learning more, we also want to provide that at the same time. And so what I'm really proud of is the 550 plus banned ingredients that aren't available at all within our stores, to the animal welfare standards that we have across our meat offerings, to our sustainable seafood sourcing offerings that we have across seafood, to our cage-free plus standards that we have with eggs. These are all ways by which we've helped elevate the standards. Not only is it, we believe, healthier for our customers, but we're taking care of the animals, the planet, our oceans, the land, as we're ultimately producing these products at the same time. And so our goal is to look at these as sort of interconnected stakeholders that we ultimately want to be able to take care of, and for customers to feel confident as they make the purchases that, we're taking care of them and we're taking care of stakeholders across the entire food system as they're choosing to buy products at Whole Foods Market. And for those who want to go deeper, and this is where you can sort of see the stories as you go around the store, you can get inspired by local suppliers that of products that we carry within the store, to better understanding the differences of what it means across our animal welfare standards. And for us, we have what we call different steps, and understanding what are those uniquenesses and how different stories might come alive in that space. And, a great example kind of bringing that to life is, Hickory Nut Gap Farms, which is located in Asheville, North Carolina. And I had a chance to visit the supplier. It's one of our meat suppliers. And, they are practicing, groundbreaking work within regenerative agriculture, and not just doing this work for themselves, but they're actually helping the broader community and broader farmers understand, as they can adopt these practices, not only are they improving the soil health and the biodiversity that exists on the farms, but they can actually reduce costs at the same time and produce a higher quality product. But it takes a lot of work and help and education. And, they become wonderful mentors to a broad set of community farmers within that area. And for me, those are some of the inspiring stories to be able to hear, not only as a team member of Whole Foods Market, but for our customers as well.
I know you're a passionate environmentalist, and I had an incredible experience with you. We were with my wife. We did a hike close to Las Vegas, where we talked about nature, and I got to sense all the importance that you give to sustainability, the importance that you give to water management, and also the conscience that you want to have in the whole corporate culture of Whole Foods. Why don't you tell us about how Whole Foods is moving in the direction not only to be carbon neutral, but also nature positive, and how do you want the whole production chain, supply chain, and relationship with customer have that environmental conscience with clear KPIs that will demonstrate that you're talking the talk, walking the walk?
Yeah, that's a great question. For us, I was referring to a little bit earlier our core values, and our communities and the environment are example of two of the stakeholders that are represented within our core values. And, I have a personal connection, which we had a chance to chat a little bit about. I love visiting our national parks and spending time outdoors and hiking, and, appreciate the beauty that we find in nature. I also have that same passion around making sure that we're taking care of our farmlands and our waterways and our oceans. And one of the things that, I aspire us to do is, help take a leadership position in this space. One of the things that we're part of is with our parent company, the broader climate pledge that Amazon has put out there. And, one of the things, misperceptions that sometimes folks have is that this work means you just have to do this work for the sake of doing it, and it's just going to cost you more money. And one of the things that I get excited about is there's so many different win-wins that you can bring together that can create great opportunities and having a positive impact to the environment and our communities, as well as a positive impact to our customers and team members and such at the same time. And oftentimes, if you can sort of blend those together and looking at the portfolio of work you need to do as a business, those opportunities allow you to, find funding to help do other work in promoting and supporting your stakeholders, like the environment, even further. So some of the things that we are, really excited about. Food waste is one area that I'm just really passionate about. First off, I think a lot of folks don't realize the impact that we have within the food industry right now and the negative impacts that it's having within the environment. A lot of folks assume that methane gases, that it's the dairy and beef industry that are driving this. Food waste in landfills is actually creating more methane gases. And so one of the leadership positions we've tried to take is reducing our food waste in half. And, I'm even challenged our teams if we have to get even better than that. And so for us, it's like dissecting every single aspect of this to say, how can we make sure that not only we're not over purchasing and overproducing things, but if we can't sell this to a customer, how do we first try to get it into the hands and the mouths of those who are food insecure? And we've done many programs in that space. And if we can't do that, how do we look at ways by which we can compost this? And that can be, an opportunity available for feed for animals, to, properly composting it to ensure that this food waste isn't going into landfills. And then many examples around how we can help reduce plastics and waste within packaging, which is also a major negative impact that the food industry is having into the broader environment. And we're doing the same thing as it relates to, how we source seafood in ways by which we can protect our waterways and our oceans. You mentioned a little bit earlier, working with our suppliers to say, how can we reduce the carbon impact and understanding from a product level all of the different things that take place, to work that we're doing with our own energy management. This is one of the examples where we can find a lot of win-wins. Investments in more energy efficient equipment will actually cost you less as a business. And we can actually create a better experience for shopping for our customers, better experience for our team members at the same time. And what I love is the work our teams do in trying to find these win-win-win opportunities and celebrating them. And I'll just give you one little tactical example that, I'm proud of is, we decided to change our bag program within our stores. And so we used to have bags which, ultimately had to be double bagged all the time because, customers wanted to make sure it was strong enough to be able to, carry groceries, especially on a longer walk and stuff. And as we studied this, we realized how much waste was kind of going into this process. So we redesigned a bag, which is greater for our team members because we're not having to double bag. It's better for customers. Transactions are going down. They've got a better bag. And we're going to end up saving about 100 million bags through this new program. And so that ends up being a positive for the company as well. We're actually saving money and we're helping the environment at the same time. And so it's areas like this that I get excited about challenging our store support teams and finding ways that we can support all of our different stakeholders together.
Well, that's very impressive, Jason. And I know that as important it is for you, the environment, I know technology is also something that you carry on your daily strategic thinking. And everybody's talking about AI and how can AI improve the way companies can do much better, can be more productive, can be more efficient. And I definitely have to ask you, how are you using today AI, and how do you expect to use AI in the upcoming years in order to not only improve Whole Foods productivity and efficiency, but also how can AI also support you on your sustainability efforts?
Yeah, that's a great question. The first thing I like to think about is there's things that AI is going to help us leapfrog on, and then there's things where I don't think AI is going to play a big role in. And some of those are the things that why I get excited for our team members. They sometimes get worried of like, oh, is AI going to take all these, responsibilities I do today? And I oftentimes say, well, I don't think AI is going to be smelling cheese in the near future. I don't think AI is going to be merchandising produce or cutting meat in our cases or filleting fish or shucking oysters. And so what we're trying to invest in is things like apprentice programs and things that can really refine skill sets in our stores. So our team members have more time to spend with customers in those engagements. And then what I'm working to do is all of the work that's not value added. How do we use AI and other technology to simplify stuff so our team members can spend that time with customers picking out all the cheeses they want to put on a charcuterie board, or helping pick that, perfect fish and the cut that the customer wants to be able to grill up that night, or the oysters that they're going to shuck. So I want to help figure out ways by which AI can help free up that time so we can reinvest it into richer team member and customer experiences. Some of the things that we're going to do is when you look at things like, how we merchandise our stores, today, in a given geography, we carry roughly the exact same products from store to store. But the reality is that sort of every neighborhood or every city or what have you might have different attributes that are important to those customers. If you take, for example, in New York, in Manhattan, we have a number of stores, but customers shopping in the Upper West Side to Chelsea to our store at One Wall, they actually have different shopping use cases and experiences. And so we can utilize AI to say, like, what is the specific assortment that we should be seeing in those stores, or how things might be different. Or I give the example, in Los Angeles, the Beverly Hills store and the Westwood and the Brentwood store are all very close in proximity. One of them is in a very affluent, walkable neighborhood. Another one's almost on a college campus. But today they have roughly the same assortment, but the customers' need states are different. And so today, what would require, dozens and dozens or hundreds of team members to be able to do that work to make a unique assortment available in all those stores is nearly impossible to be able to find funding to do that. But with AI, we can find great tooling that's going to allow us to say, okay, what should this assortment be? How many facings should be of these various products, and make those adjustments so we can actually serve customers better. We'll use some of the same things in how we look at, forecasting and replenishing products into our stores. And while we've gotten a lot better in tooling that we've built to date, when you start to look at ways by which you can study things like weather and special events and, how customers in some stores substitute products in some ways and other stores do it differently, that's something that can allow us to actually make sure, as we see different changes within our supply chain, how do we make sure that we're constantly in stock and ready to serve the customer in the best place? And a good example I get is, how rain shows up in one city. So if it's raining in Seattle, the buying behavior change is very little in that market. If it's raining in Los Angeles, it's very different to what a customer behavior might be. And so these are things that we can look at a local level to understand all of these unique ways by which customer buying behavior changes. As a result, our supply chain has to be able to react so we can constantly make sure that we are in stock and ready to serve our customer in the best way possible. So I think this is going to be one of the areas that just completely transforms not just retail, but our food systems. And going into your question around how AI can really tie into some of the areas around sustainability, I think this is also going to change just behaviors around how customers are going to look at transparency and how product information comes back to them as they're looking to buy it. And, I kind of envision a world where, customers in the future are going to be looking at all the complexities of what do I want to buy based upon my household. And so you're going to have special diets. You're going to have needs around understanding how is this product grown or sourced, and understanding the traceability on it, to what your own personal biome might be as well, which might be different within the household. And we're going to be using tools like this to not only be able to help create lists of products, but to be able to help discover and understand the products that can come together and the recipes that can be created to make sure that everybody in the household, we can meet those objectives. And I think that's going to be just a completely different way by which we're going to look at the discovery of new products and, how you're going to be able to bring together so many different needs, whether at an individual level or a household of four.
That's amazing. And before we jump into some personal questions about leadership and about your own habits as a CEO, I need to ask you something that always impacts me. And is that I know that at the beginning, Whole Foods and in many of the stores, you had the possibility for people to eat in the stores, the fresh food that they could buy. And it was something like a side business. It was doing well. But now when you look at the numbers, it seems that the amount of people that also want to have the experience in the Whole Foods stores, that go buy their fresh food, eat, enjoy, and have the possibility to taste different products, has scaled up in a way that this business has become massive. Why don't you tell us a little bit how something that was considered a side business now is also one of the fastest growing, if I could say, restaurant chains in the United States?
Yeah. Well, I think part of this comes down to the quality standards that I mentioned earlier. Customers are wanting to be able to have products and food that are ready for consumption, immediate consumption. And oftentimes you also have groups of people where different people want different products. And one of them may say, like, I want, vegan products. Another, person may say, I want gluten-free products. And someone wants pizza, and someone wants a sandwich. It's hard to be able to go to restaurants today, whether it's fine dining to fast casual to fast food, and be able to sort of meet all the different dietary requirements that customers have, or dietary restrictions that they might have. And then at the same time, I mentioned earlier, so many more customers are caring about what they eat. And I'll just give a little example on Gen Z. We did a study just a few months ago. 70% of Gen Zers care about climate-friendly agriculture practices, and 50% of them actually will pay more for products that are actually following those practices. And the reality is that generation is wanting the transparency from places where we aren't offering it up. So you look at places where you're eating out of home today, a lot of that doesn't exist. And I think that's where we've created an offering where, whether you're buying products that are in our aisle, or you're going to our prepared foods and, eating off of one of our hot bar, salad bar, to a sandwich we're going to make, or the pizza we're going to make, or, a pre-packed offering that we've put together, it's always going to meet those standards. And you can serve, basically, we can meet any dietary restriction or need state that customers have. And so I think we've created this great opportunity where you can come to Whole Foods and be able to find that product, and whether you want to take it, grab it, and walk to the park, to eating right inside our store at one of our cafes, we're able to sort of help customers in that space. And so I think this is an opportunity that we're going to be able to continue to grow, because more and more customers are going to care about that transparency, and they're going to want to be able to have the different offerings that we can bring to bear through our prepared foods.
That's something that really impacts me. And I know we're running out of time, Jason, but you're a young CEO with a tremendous experience, great vision. And many people that want to follow your steps could be asking, okay, what are the habits that someone like Jason Buechel has every day? Can you share some of those habits, or maybe counsels or principles that guide you, that you are able to share with the people who are listening to us?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think one of the things that's important for everyone, no matter what you're doing, is finding out, how do you connect your purpose with what you're doing? And if you can't find that connection, you probably haven't found, the dream job or the ideal space for you to be in. And so it's not always going to be 100% perfect. People always ask me questions like, do you love 100% of your job? I'm like, well, no, that's what makes it a job. It's figuring out that balance where it's, you want it to be greater than 50% of your time, you enjoy those moments. And for me, that percentage point right now is really high. I'm in my dream job. And a big part of it is my personal purpose and passions I've connected to the work that I'm doing. And so that's like one of the pieces of advice I give to folks, because oftentimes when I'm having some of these conversations and giving folks advice, and I'm peeling away at the onion, that passion might be disconnected. And if the passion is just I want to make a lot of money and move up really quickly, and I don't care what that is, but you haven't made the connection to how it's going to fulfill you as a person, I kind of give the warning signals, because that was probably me in my 20s. I was in the consulting industry. It was about moving up quick, and the faster you moved up, the more money you made, and I cared about steps like that. But at some point, you don't get that same fulfillment on that space. And so I oftentimes encourage folks to figure out what that is. And you may not know what it is in your 20s, but continue to sort of feel that piece out. And so for me now, every day when I get out of bed, it's like, okay, what am I doing today that's going to help fulfill me with my own personal purpose, and at the same time living up to Whole Foods' higher purpose and core values? And I can usually look at my calendar and see, these are the three things today that is going to allow me to sort of fill up. And the other advice I would give is, we're all going to have those days and weeks where things get really kind of rough, and you've got, you're spending 80% of your time that isn't value added for you personally. It's figuring out, how do you rejuvenate from there? And what are the things that you do personally? And for me, it's being out, outside, it's running, it's ultimately, enjoying time with friends and family. It's making sure that you can sort of time block to sort of fill back up, and then find those things at work that also get you excited, and make sure that you spend time doing that. For me, it's getting out in our stores, connecting with our team members, hearing stories, going and visiting suppliers. And so when I look at sort of planning out my, calendar throughout the year, I figure out, like, I know the weeks that are going to be tougher, they happen every year at the same time. How do you make sure you've got those opportunities to sort of help refill, if you will? And then my last piece of advice, which I give everyone, that I still do today, is be a sponge. Oftentimes, folks feel like, I only can learn from the person who's higher up than me, or, the person who's doing, the same thing that I'm working in today. And I got advice years and years ago from a mentor, like, learn from everyone around you. Like, it's going to make you better at what you do, within your company and as a person, but you're going to figure out that you probably have some other interests that you don't even know that you have. And so that ultimately for me has led me to, drive in different parts of my career. But, every day when I go to a store, I learn something new. And I get information I'm learning from our team members in the store. One of my favorite places to spend time in is in our specialty department, talking with our cheesemongers. I have longstanding connection with cheese. I was mentioning earlier, my dad was a cheesemaker, but like, I learned something new. I learned about a new cheese, or, an offering that's not there. And so for me, that's something that is like continue to help enrich me. And at the same time, realize that we are all on a learning journey. And so I constantly, whether I'm meeting other CEOs or other leaders in business, like, be a sponge. What can I learn from their experiences, as well? And so that's one of my other big pieces of advice I love to give folks.
I think they're amazing pieces of advice. And Jason, my last question. I know you love to read, and I want to ask you, what are you reading right now that you could recommend us?
Well, actually, it's really interesting. I do a couple of different groups of book clubs, if you will, that I have folks sort of read some things. And in some cases, I do rereads of things because a big part of the group hasn't read it yet. And so you mentioned a little bit earlier, John, and some of the work he's done with conscious capitalism. They had just done an event just a few weeks ago for their CEO summit for conscious capitalism. So I was there presenting at it and talking with one of the groups about it, and over half of the group hadn't read Conscious Leadership. And so I just did a reread, and it's been kind of fun, having not read it for a couple of years, to go back and now be in a dialogue, which is a mixture of other leaders in business, but some entrepreneurs as well, and like what folks take away. And that's like one of my favorite things to do, is sort of be able to sort of connect and discuss. And so for me, it's oftentimes not just personally what I'm reading and taking from it myself, but when you're able to have a dialogue with other folks, sort of the enrichment that can sort of come to life. And it's funny because I was just in one of the discussions last week, and there's a chapter about sort of finding the win-win solutions. And I was mentioning earlier some of the examples around, how we can support environmental practices, but help all the different stakeholders, including the company. And so this is one where we had some really good debate on how this shows up differently in really small and emerging and startup businesses versus, some really larger businesses. And one of the folks in the reading circle is from a much larger company than even Whole Foods. And so sort of seeing how it's really easy in some organizations to do this, but it can be really difficult in others. So for me, that's actually one of the greatest gifts of reading, is being able to share with others and have that dialogue.
Well, thank you so much, Jason. This has been an amazing conversation. I really admire your work, and I really look forward for you to come and visit Colombia. One of the issues that we've talked is about the Amazon, and I would love to invite you at some point to come and see some of the Amazonic products that many of the indigenous communities can offer to the world. I know your sensibility for the environment, and honestly, thank you for being such a charismatic, but at the same time, a very committed leader to making a much better world from the corporate sector. So thank you for being with us in Tres Respuestas, Jason.
Yes, President Duque, thank you so much for having me. I look forward to seeing you at some point in Colombia. It's the country's been a wonderful source for us with so many suppliers, including, I have to highlight, our source for good flowers. We have so many that come from Colombia. So look forward to the visit at some point, and so appreciate the conversation today.